I'm not sure how you follow someone with both a catchy tune and a great tale, but he did say something, Dave said something, that he responded in the way that he was most comfortable doing. And I think whether we're talking about corporate brands or voters for Barack Obama, that's sort of what we aim to do, using digital, perhaps the only platform that allows such a diversity of relationships to exist. So let me get into a little bit. You know, I was at a meeting a couple of months ago, very good meeting, I thought, with a corporate brand. And then at the end, a woman stood up and asked, is all we do build communities? And I'd thought about the hour before and all the conversations about their business challenges around communities, and resulted, yes, that's what we do, however you want to define it. We are, in fact, our first presidential campaign, less successful than the latter, was for Howard Dean's effort in 2003 and 2004, where we started the company on the tail end of that. Obviously, in the early days, we were small, trying to change the world in Washington. It was during and after the Obama campaign that we sort of grew into what we are today and continue to grow. 120 people in 5 offices, working now in about a dozen countries. To David's point, some of the things that we've expanded on in our portfolio, some people look at this and wonder exactly where the connecting dots are between, say, US soccer, the BBC, and Al Gore's climate crisis effort. It's about membership and retained association. So whether that's with a voter, a donor, a brand advocate, or an employee, these are the different things we work in. So whether it's the campus, the academic club of an institution like this, or subscribers to Carnegie Hall, or the variety of things that require not just a one-off campaign blitz, but a sustained relationship over time that you're asking people to engage in, as Dave said, the way they're most comfortable. Why we're known, I'll tell a little bit about what we did for the president. We got called 2 weeks before he announced his candidacy. We had been working for the DNC and other efforts, so we were known in this space. They had underestimated the need for both technology and strategy services in the campaign. And so David Plouffe and David Axelrod and others recruited us. My business partner, Joe, moved to Chicago, became the campaign, sort of gained the 20 pounds, did the whole thing, built an agency within the campaign of nearly 100 people that were working on the new media, the largest team within Chicago headquarters for the campaign. At the end of the day, over 22 months, as you see here, we recruited organically a list of just over 13 million individual emails. That represents 1 out of 5 of the voters for Barack Obama on Election Day. So to put that in perspective from a historical standpoint, Howard Dean's email list, known as the first email candidate, et cetera, topped out about 350,000 people. John Kerry's list topped out at just over 800,000 people. So this isn't just our work. This is about sort of society's readiness to engage via digital in a campaign effort. We raised about 2/3 of the money, just over $500 million from 3.2 million individual donors. The average person was not a 22-year-old on Facebook. It was also not a 75-year-old in direct mail. It was a sweet spot of about 45 years old, giving an average of $86. And over the course of it, some of you were probably on this list, billions, over 2 billion email messages were sent, not all of them individual to your inboxes, I assure you. It may have felt like that at times, but nonetheless, I talk a lot about email because despite the campaign coverage of Facebook, Twitter, all of the extraneous pieces, it was that email engagement, that narrative, that story that was being told via email first that trickled over into all the other third-party networks, and of course an offline engagement. This line here, lowering the barriers to entry while raising the level of expectations, is what we did, what we strove to do, break down the barriers between traditional channels of fundraising, traditional channels of field organizing, and the communications apparatus of a campaign. I'm going to give one example of doing that. Can we turn up the volume, please, on the...
That's the reason I've been a Democrat all my life. Because I saw what Roosevelt did when he first came in office. My mother would have lost her farm. We'd have lost everything we had if it hadn't been for President Roosevelt being elected to office.
Charles started volunteering with us here about 4 weeks ago now. It was right after his wife passed away. He'd been married to her for 69 years, and he has been helping us with the front desk, greeting folks, signing them in, making sure they feel welcome here. He's one of the most amazing people I've met on the campaign. He saw our raffle box that we had set up for every volunteer who came in to help us was able to submit a raffle ticket to be pulled at random, and the next day was the day that we pulled the winner, and I stuck my hand in the big box and swirled it around at random and pulled out Charles Alexander's ticket, and everyone was just in shock. Everyone in the office said if one person out of Boulder County, out of Colorado could meet Barack, this was the guy that absolutely deserved it. And we told him the next day, and he looked at us and he said, "Are you pulling my leg? Are you kidding me? I've never won anything in my life."
Oh, that's the greatest thing in my life. I tell you, I never did think I would meet someone going to be the president of the United States in my lifetime. And he is such a lovely person. He's the same in person as he is on TV. And if he get to be elected president, it'll be one of the greatest jobs this country, people ever done for this country. To elect him for president, now somebody can unite the country back together. Because divided, we will never go no place when we are divided.
And he's the type of person that gets me up out of bed every morning and keeps me going.
My God, all these young people here, they are our tomorrow's future. I'm dying off. Everybody my age is dying off. Everybody. The next 4 or 5 years, I probably won't be around. These young people are going to take the lead. This is what I love about seeing all these people in here volunteer, because they are our tomorrow's future. They are my grandkids' future, their great-great-grandkids, the young people that you see here today. God knows, and I've seen a bunch of them. They are really a wonderful people. They're just as friendly as they can be. They are real united people. And that's what this country really be now, 100% united. And I just think that Barack Obama is a person that can do it.
So why I like showing that at events like this is because we had nothing to do with it. It was shot on an $85 flip camera in a field office by a volunteer, uploaded through a system of tools that people were empowered to use. Serendipity struck its chord. We found it in one of 11,000 videos created just like that. Became one of the most successful pieces of campaign footage. Nothing to do with the candidate, taking no time from any paid staffer. It was someone responding, both Charles, an 86-year-old man who was recruited from an email campaign into the office, and the young staffer who found him and told that story, responding to the campaign in a way they were most comfortable with. So another reference point, big organization we've been working with for about 2 years, the Red Cross. Now, we got involved at the end of 2008 in year-end fundraising, and it was a new incoming CEO to the Red Cross, and she wanted us to test our strategies. Big opportunity for us, big challenge. She decided, not a challenge I would encourage you all to follow, to break the email list in half and ask us to go head-to-head against her internal team. So for November, December of 2008, they took about a 4 million person email list, split it directly in half, ran parallel campaigns. Us doing campaign-style, personality-rich engagement, them doing a very standard, at the time successful newsletter, 1-minute update. Every Thursday you would get a 1-minute update, an e-newsletter campaign. You see here, these were results after 45 days of that test. And the numbers were so dramatic that we took over the full organizational effort, working with internal teams, but taking the whole messaging effort towards our campaign style. We went through 2009, and something to remember with the Red Cross, 2009 was a disaster-free year. A good thing for all of us, but makes it, from a messaging perspective, challenging for the Red Cross to justify involvement and ongoing contribution. We nonetheless put, during that time, structures in place to change the working group around digital, to change the way the approval processes get done, and to deepen the personalization and long-term commitment to people on the other end of that email. Haiti came around. The work finally paid off. The first one is the most important to me, having worked closely with the organization on the process. The first message went out within 3 hours. of the first news alert from Haiti that the disaster had happened. Then what followed over the next 9 days, a lot of communication. Out of the total of 8 messages, 3 of them asked directly for money. It was asking people to do things beyond just giving money as a way to incentivize more and more money and sustain the commitment to Haiti. So you saw here we also launched a text campaign that many of you probably have seen. We coordinated a lot of the earned media efforts, generated over 2 million YouTube videos of disaster relief during these 9 days. So it was a year of work building the structures for rapid deployment and quick engagement with individuals, best on display during these 9 days of Haiti, and it continues. Something in the more corporate sense that we're doing, still a passion touch point, but for U.S. soccer. We are competing for the 2018 World Cup to bring it back here to the States. We have, since September, launched a campaign that is now going into its public phase in May as the FIFA committees will come and visit the 18 cities that are vying for participation in the World Cup. We have organically, just based on Google search advertising and outreach, built up over 300,000 people to a grassroots list focused on petitions for individual cities, starting with 30 cities, now down to 18. What will happen in May, simultaneously to the delivery of the formal bid books, are things like welcome parties at airports for the FIFA committee, rallies at City Hall, offline signs of enthusiasm for soccer or football in the States for the FIFA committees coming to evaluate whether we are, I guess, worthy of hosting another World Cup. Here's a general example, but a tactic. I speak a lot about email, but don't discount the powers of social media, as Dave pointed to in the song. We tie them together. We're not just a social media agency or an email marketing agency. Here's an example of an upcoming campaign for Autism Speaks, one of our clients. They're doing a Lighted Up Blue event where the Empire State Building and Madison Square Gardens and monuments around the country will be lit blue to raise awareness. Email campaigns. Look here. This is a Twitter Buzz Metrics feed, starting with the days before, relatively flatlined. The spikes that are circled, coordinated to when we send emails. So if we're sending an email with an alert to 100,000 people for Autism Speaks, encouraging them to syndicate that content and syndicate their activities on other social media, you see the ripple effect of how all these different channels of online and offline communications play together. I pull it up because it's a pretty dramatic spike as we see the follow-on to different email messages. So, quickly, in my 7 minutes remaining, how you do it, the basics. Forgive me if some of this is elementary, but I think there's other case studies lined within it that help sell the point. Building the list. 3 questions, whether this is on a Twitter feed, a Facebook wall, or, of course, the email marketing. Why am I on the list? What do you want from me now, and what comes next? You're telling a story about sustained engagement, asking people to do a series of actions. Implicit in that is understanding why these people are there and where in this funnel of participation they participate. That 1-minute update from the Red Cross or any email newsletter that you may contribute to or subscribe to treats all of these people as the same. What we try to do is break this up so that you're committing more of your resources, messaging, advertising, communications, et cetera, to the upper tier of these people. If this ladder of engagement was customized for Barack Obama, you would see it slightly more rarefied. You have your house party hosts, you have your offline volunteers, your contributors, your maxed out contributors, et cetera, et cetera. This is a genericized one, but still makes the point. The newsletter model, the one-to-many broadcast model, treats all of these people the same and fails to take advantage of the digital channels that allows for deep segmentation. Making a good first impression. This is so bad that I blacked it out because I don't want to shame anyone. You'll see it is a museum, but I won't tell you more. You sign up for their email list, whether this is before or after going to the museum or any other online engagement, and this is what you get back. How is that for building a relationship? Probably could do better. Another museum, one that we're proud to work with our London office with the Tate. This is their email newsletter that would go out on a monthly basis. 12 different links, lots of events, lots of content, but no response mechanism, no data collection or personality. What we have done, this is an example of fundraising, started introducing curators of the museum, people that are responsible for your visit and responsible for spending your money if you are donating to the museum as a member, and giving a goal. In this case, they're trying to finish a collection of Blake etchings. Laying out a goal, raising the money based on Dr. Alison Smith's commitment to bringing this back to the British Museum. Next month, this final Blake etching goes up in the British Museum, surrounded by notes from people, individual contributors, who cared enough about the institution and or the artist to chip in their money to bring it back to the museum holding. This is press that was received on it from The Guardian, finishing that online and offline relationship with some success. The speed of engagement. I talked a lot about Haiti. Here's a good example, and I just love this picture. I can't help but to throw it up. The biggest day of fundraising for the Obama campaign was one that was entirely unplanned. If you recall, we had a successful DNC convention in Colorado, and John McCain then picked the governor of Alaska to be his running mate, and they went into Minneapolis to have their convention. The Tuesday night of the convention, introduced by Rudy Giuliani, Sarah Palin went on a vicious attack of community organizing, basically saying that one who has a past in community organizing is a radical and not prepared to be president. The campaign team to that point had built up a community at that nearly 10 million people, premised on the fact that community organizing was in fact a key trait that have made him especially qualified to be president in this time. You can't let an attack like that go unresponded to. 10 minutes after Sarah Palin walked off the stage, this email went out. Less than 200 words. Didn't even do a graphic on it because it would have taken too much time. Was the single biggest day of fundraising for the campaign, completely off the planned calendar for digital or offline engagement. Interesting with this, too, is that it became, the timeliness was so important because it became part of the story the next day. If you recall, Sarah Palin had a very successful campaign speech at the beginning. It wasn't until the Katie Couric interviews that it started getting a little rocky. Key to that press, before the press filed their story from Minneapolis, was the fact that already the Obama campaign was in the midst of what looked to be the biggest day of fundraising of the campaign while the candidate is in Hawaii with the family. Critically important for the timing. We built tools not to just build fancy tools, but to engage people in real activities. So we have many examples of brands and campaigns calling us, asking to build a private label social network for this and that, without really understanding the value proposition of engagement via those tools. So standing alone, a social network, a Facebook page, anything else, isn't really useful unless you're collecting data and have an online and offline relationship to take advantage of that engagement with people. So there's a long list of tools that we could provide. What is the strategy that is engaging people to use them, is what's the first question, often confused. Here's another fun one. Now this is one that can't be recreated in some, but has a good lesson to it. There was a call to the campaign asking for the correct Pantone colors for the Obama logo. This was in early 2008. In the primary days. And if you recall, Hillary Clinton strong in the rural parts of the battleground states. Barack Obama stronger in suburban and urban counties. So you get a farmer from Ohio calling for the correct Pantone colors. You be sure to get them to him. And you begin to think, how many farmers out there are excited to paint their barns? If you think back to that ladder of participation, these are people way at the top or even levels above it. Nonetheless, he got his Pantone colors, he got the correct logo, and he is a very charismatic cow. We thought, along with the field department, what do we do with this? Why don't we spotlight this guy as a rabid volunteer and encourage others to follow in his footsteps? So you think back, February of 2008, going into primary battles in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, etc., places with lots of agriculture, farmers. Do a geo-search on your database for people involved from those counties. We had 1,500 barns painted in the 6 weeks that followed that initial call from the farmer. So this became free media, a lot of press about this, and literally billboards offline of people building scaffoldings and having their correct and at times incorrect Pantoned logos for the campaign. And then finally, back to the point that I showed with Autism Speaks, we treat the Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, everything else as embassies. The goal of your website, offline engagement, email, and other highly controllable ways is to recruit, train, and mobilize ambassadors to represent your brands. So with this, standalone Twitter strategy is not really something that we're interested in servicing. A standalone Facebook strategy is not necessarily something that'll bring value to your brand. Instead, think of all these channels and the data that's collected with them, simultaneous with your offline engagement, and think of how you use these things in collaboration. I think that's what's both too often missing from digital strategies as standalones, and what we tend to try to do with all of our now increasingly diverse clients. So you guys are doing this. Your FAQs talked about media collections and engagements in ways we're comfortable with. So whether it be at the conference level, the corporate brand, or obviously the institutional levels, this is what we do. So with that, I appreciate it. I think I went about 2 minutes over, but thanks for the invitation.